The Titanic is not a shipwreck. It is a grave. And what happens when you disturb a grave says everything about who we are. On April 14, 1912, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck an iceberg. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, 1,517 people were gone. The wreck was found in 1985, 12,500 feet below the surface, sitting in complete darkness, perfectly preserved by the cold, untouched by human hands for over 7 decades. Since then, at least 8 serious proposals have been made to raise it. 8 plans, 8 failures, and the ship has not moved 1 single inch. Most people assume the answer is simple. It's too deep, too expensive, too dangerous. But the real reason, the one nobody talks about, is far more uncomfortable than any of those. Because the real question was never, can we raise the Titanic? The real question is, and should we? And the moment you understand what raising it would actually mean, you will never ask that question the same way again. Let's start with the engineering. The Titanic weighs 46,000 tons. That is heavier than 8,000 elephants, sitting at the bottom of the North Atlantic, in water so cold it is just above freezing, under pressure so immense it would crush a human body instantly. Engineers in the 1990s had a plan: attach 180 underwater balloons to the hull, fill them with diesel fuel, which floats, and lift the entire ship to the surface. On paper, it was brilliant. In reality, the Titanic would disintegrate before it reached the surface. Because after 110 years underwater, the metal is not metal anymore. Bacteria have been eating it since 1912. They have consumed an estimated 200 pounds of iron every single day. At this rate, by 2030, the Titanic will be unrecognizable. So even if we wanted to raise it, we are already too late. But here is what nobody tells you. We could rebuild the technology. We could find the funding. We could solve every single engineering problem. And we still should not do it. Not because of engineering, not because of money, but because of something that has no engineering solution at all. Because the Titanic is not just a ship. It is the largest grave in the North Atlantic. 1,517 people died on that ship, and the majority of their bodies were never recovered. They are still down there, in the darkness, in the cold, exactly where they came to rest on the night of April 15th, 1912. Which means the Titanic is not an archaeological site. It is a cemetery, recognized by maritime law, protected by international agreement, and in most cultures across human history, you do not disturb the dead. You do not dig up their resting place. You do not put them on display. And yet, every year, thousands of Titanic artifacts are auctioned to the highest bidder. A first-class menu sold for $83,000. A pair of binoculars sold for $90,000. The violin played as the ship sank sold for $1.7 million. These were not artifacts. They were someone's last possessions. The binoculars belonged to a man named Blair. He was removed from the crew at the last minute. He kept the binoculars. The replacement crew had none. And on the night of April 14th, no one saw the iceberg until it was 37 seconds away. 37 seconds. That is the entire distance between 1,517 lives and survival. So when someone tells you the Titanic is just a ship, they are wrong. Every object on that wreck is a thread connected to a real human life. Every room is someone's last room. Every corridor, someone's last walk. Raising the Titanic would not be a salvage operation. It would be an exhumation. And there are 1,517 people, or what remains of them, who never agreed to that. But here is where it gets truly complicated. Because not everyone agrees. There are people, serious people, historians and scientists and engineers, who argue the exact opposite. Who say that raising the Titanic is not a desecration. It is a rescue. The only real rescue left. Their argument is this: the Titanic is dying. Every single day that passes, the bacteria consume more. Every current that moves through those corridors takes another piece of history with it. Every year the wreck collapses further into the silt. And when it is finally gone, and it will be gone completely within decades, every story it holds, every object it cradles, every secret it has kept for over a century will disappear with it. Forever. So which is the greater disrespect? Raising it, or watching it dissolve into nothing and doing nothing to stop it? That question has no clean answer, and the people who have spent their lives studying the Titanic cannot agree on it either. Robert Ballard, the man who found the wreck in 1985, has been clear his entire career. Leave it alone. It is a grave. It deserves the dignity of the deep. He has watched other explorers strip the site. He has watched artifacts pulled from the silt and sold at auction, and he has called it grave robbing, publicly, repeatedly, without apology. But others look at the same wreck and see something different. They see 1/500 stories that are being erased one molecule at a time. They see letters that could be read. They see photographs that could be identified. They see a history that belongs not just to the dead, but to every person alive who is descended from someone who stood on that deck. And there are descendants, many of them. People alive today whose great-grandparents booked a ticket, boarded a ship, and never came home. People who have never had a grave to visit, never had a place to stand and say, "This is where they were. This is where it happened. This is where I come from. Come." What do we owe them? What do we owe the dead? These are not engineering questions. They are not questions of funding or technology or logistics. They are the oldest questions human beings have ever asked each other, and we have never fully agreed on the answers. Because here is the truth that sits at the center of all of it. The Titanic did not just sink. It cracked open something in the human story that is never fully closed. It was the moment the 20th century looked at its own confidence and watched it go underwater. The largest ship ever built, the most advanced technology of its age, the unsinkable made suddenly, violently, completely sinkable. And 1,117 people paid the price for that arrogance with their lives. There is a reason we cannot stop talking about the Titanic. There is a reason it fills documentaries and films and books more than a century later. It is not because of the engineering. It is not because of the cold water or the darkness or the depth. It is because the Titanic is a story about us. About what happens when human beings believe they have conquered nature. About the gap between what we think we can control and what we actually can. About how quickly everything we build can come apart. And about the 1,517 people who were simply living their lives, sleeping, eating, dancing, dreaming, when the gap between arrogance and reality opened beneath their feet. So, should we raise the Titanic? Maybe the more honest question is this. Can we raise it without raising everything it means? Without raising the grief of the families who lost someone on that night? Without raising the uncomfortable mirror it holds up to every generation that looks at it and sees its own hubris reflected back? The ship can stay on the ocean floor, but what it represents, that we have never been able to leave down there. And perhaps that is exactly where the real answer has been all along. Not in the engineering, not in the law, not in the cost, but in the fact that more than a century later, in a world of satellites and submarines and technology, that would have seemed like magic to everyone on that ship. We are still standing at the surface, still looking down, still asking the same question, and still not sure we deserve the answer.